Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sam with Reminder Media, and I'm here presenting Cavalier in Transition, Creating and Maintaining a Professional Brand. So I want to kind of go over my background a little bit. So my background, I graduated from Cabrini actually back in 2012, so just a couple of years ago. I majored in Human Resources Management and Marketing, as I really kind of always loved dealing with people, but really didn't know exactly where I wanted to take my career. Actually, because of the relationship that I built with my advisor while I was actually in school. Sorry about that. Well, actually, because of the relationship that I built actually with my advisor while in school, Dr. Metz, he actually recommended me for an internship opportunity, which was brought to his attention from a previous Cabrini student. If I had not made it a personal interest of mine to create truly maintain a relationship with Dr. Metz over the years at Cabrini, I don't believe he really would have gotten to see who I was and see my true brand. So overall in my career, I have over 3 years of experience between recruiting and admissions combined. Currently, what my position is today, the second, is I work again with Reminder Media. It's a marketing firm in King of Prussia, so not too far from Cabrini's campus at all. And my role with Reminder Media is to work directly with students. I was originally brought to the company solely to recruit and help brand our company. So along the Philadelphia area schools, I not only recruit them, of course, but I also interview the students and hire for various internships and full-time opportunities. A lot of my success, in my opinion, truly comes from the actual efforts that I put in towards branding our business as a whole. Not a lot of companies, or I should say not a lot of schools, really knew what Reminder Media was, who we were, where we were located. So a lot of my personal success has come from stemmed from the branding that I put into and the efforts I put into branding the company at these schools. My passion really truly comes from helping students and making sure that they're bettering themselves while in school, and of course when they were to graduate as well. So I have a question for the few participants that we have here today. What is your brand? And if you could see to the right the little chat box, if you want to throw in a couple of words or comments, if anyone wants to participate for a quick second, if anyone wants to guess kind of what your brand is. So I'll give a minute or so if you want to throw in your comments to the right there. Online brand, okay. Anything else? All right, so we'll go with online brand for right now. Online brand is, in my opinion, a certain version of your brand, and we'll go to the next slide here. So what is your brand? In my opinion, what your brand really is the product you sell every single day, which is quite frankly yourself. A lot of people think about what your brand is and what a brand is, and they typically think about a company. Let's say, for example, Target or Walmart. They have a brand, of course, being a brand name big box store that you can get a lot of products and kind of get everything at one shot. People don't really typically think about your personal brand and what that means to other people. So in reality, everyone in this world is their own particular brand, and it's in your own hands, and not a lot of people realize that. It's in your own hands on how professional and established you want to make your brand look. It's truly in your hands, so everything you do, and we'll get to that in future slides, but just wanted to make sure that people are aware that you have it in your control to control your brand itself. The next slide, I put in a quote from Damon John, who's of course from Shark Tank. His quote reads, "First of all, they, of course, people should treat themselves like a brand, regardless. Day job, home, personal life. They have to put their personal brand in 2 to 5 words, and they have to be very honest in what they stand for. If you look like you're working at a company and you're in finance, I think you should be wearing things very close-fitted, tight to the company. The perception is, of course, you're very diligent and meticulous. Some people think branding and dressing a certain way is expensive, but shining a pair of shoes, no matter how old they are, does not cost a lot, but it makes a definite effect. Now, if you wear suits for a matter, like he mentioned in the quote, even if it's $99 suit, just get it tailored the right way." And I loved putting this quote in here because it truly explains what branding is in terms of your personal brand. It doesn't need to be expensive clothes that you're wearing. It doesn't need to be certain things that you have to do every single day. It's just a matter of being really aware of really what you're doing. and the perception you want to give off to people in terms of your brand overall. So why is it so important? You know, what do you represent? That's the big key here is your representation to people. So your brand is really your opportunity to show people what you represent and who you truly are. So think about, for example, someone that you are really close to. You know, think about before we head to that point, think about really what you want people to think about when they hear your name. Do you want them to think of just another student or a professional, you know, or someone who really made an impact in their life in some way and could be a true asset to their business, class, or school? You know, when you're speaking to a teacher, how do you want them to perceive you? When you're speaking to your parents, you know, as you of course you grew up and you're now in your full-time jobs, or whether you're still in school, you want your teachers and your parents and people that you look up to look at you and say, wow, I'm glad they're in my life because it's someone that I know that they are professional, they're respectful, and that's everything that represents your brand. What goes along with that is really your career goals. You know, are you goal oriented? Are you someone that just kind of says it is what it is? And there's nothing wrong with either or, but that's your brand and what you represent and what you send off to people. A little thing I wanted to kind of throw out there is if anyone who's participating in this moment, think about someone you've really always looked up to, whether that be a parent, a mentor, or a boss. And if you flip the script for a sec, how do you view them? You know, do you think if you thought of just one word to describe your parent or mentor or teacher, do you think of them as a professional? Do you see them as successful? You know, are they put together? Are they happy? What are some things that have made them, in your mind, someone who you look up to? And all those things you list in the moment that you're listening to me this moment is truly their brand. You branded them as someone who is successful, who is happy, who enjoys life, and that's something that you want to be part of. So just make sure that you remember it's a lasting impression, and make sure that you're leaving the impression the way that you would want to be impressed yourself. Create that brand that people want, essentially, is my point across for this slide. Next slide is creating your brand. You know, it's identifying your product, if you will, and I put that in quotes because I use that term very loosely. You know, when people speak about your actual product, it's, again, going back to one of the first slides, it's yourself. You know, so a way that you can kind of dig at yourself a little bit is to come up with a list of personal values. You know, what is important to you? What are you passionate about? What are some talents that you have? Again, all these things are things that will certainly separate you from the next person sitting to your left, the next person sitting to your right. When you're going for interviews, for example, you know, myself, I'm a recruiter, so my particular role, of course, in my position is to look for certain passions and talents and values that a student or a young professional would have that makes them stand out. You know, I'm looking for the best brand out there. And the big thing that students and professionals alike, even who have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years under their belt, is realizing that you are unintentionally, some cases intentionally, creating your brand every single day. And the big thing is realizing is that no matter what you do, how you do it, and we're going to touch on that in the next slide, but making sure that everything that you do is leaving the appropriate impact on somebody. And again, most importantly, of course, would be a recruiter or a mentor or a boss or someone that you know you need to have them looking at you like that you have your stuff together, essentially. So how do you want to be seen? And of course, everyone's going to say, well, I want to be seen as someone who's successful and someone who has everything together and everything lined up right, especially when you're about to graduate college and you're applying for jobs, or even if you're just having a career change. The big thing with that is making sure that you are being seen in the light the way you really want to be seen. And not many people think about that. They rather just apply to jobs and see what happens and hope for the best. And a lot of things is I want you to think about really what you say, how you say it, your body language, of course, and most importantly, we'll touch on this as well, is what you post online. I'll use a perfect example. You think about when I bring a student in for an interview. They tell me verbally that they love what they hear, they love the position, they love the company. But at the end of the day, in that interview, they might be slouching in their chair. They didn't have much knowledge on the position, so they really didn't do much research. And they came to the interview wearing a T-shirt and maybe if it's dress pants, fine, but the overall idea is if they didn't do research on the company, they're slouching in their chair during the interview, and they're not wearing the appropriate attire for an interview to impress me, that kind of screams to me, hey, I want this, but I don't really care that much about actually impressing. And that to me is their brand. They're branding themselves as someone that, hey, I like the job, but I don't like it enough to make all the right moves. Whether they know better or they don't, it's a matter of, hey, listen, if you don't know better, that's totally fine. I get that. I didn't know many things in college in terms of, professional growth and professional development, but ask questions, ask what should you wear, ask what, if you want to get some practice tips for an interview, certainly ask professionals. And we'll get to that as well when we talk about LinkedIn on how you can use that to your advantage as well. But the big goal here is to make sure that you are sending the image off that you are here to be professional. You are here, for example, in an interview that you want to learn more about the company. You want to learn more about the person who's interviewing you, more about the position. Is this a right fit for you? And that's not going to happen if you don't send off the brand of, hey, I want to be here, and I'm someone that is the right fit for this job. So to go back on also on the online presence for a sec, your online presence as well, beyond your physical body language and how you say and what you say, is a huge, huge portion of what defines you as a professional, especially in your early career. When it comes time to apply for jobs and even networking, which we'll certainly again go a little bit more in depth later, people who look you up online only see what you have posted. Remember that. So if you have certain things online that you necessarily don't want people seeing, you got to remember that me as a recruiter, for instance, if I have an actual application that applies to me, to my company, and I say, hey, this resume looks great, I'm going to go search them and see if I can find a little bit more about them, whether it's their personality, their background, or whatever it is. And if I happen to come across a picture or two or a post or two that kind of screams to me, hey, this could be a red flag, you should be certain that I probably wouldn't be giving someone that call back, because that to me is a red flag. And that if that happens in the company, it not only is it bad news for the company, but of course it's bad news for myself to say, listen, what kind of representation are they going to be about Reminder Media if I bring them to our business? So that's my take on how you really do want to be seen. Now, I want to switch the script a little bit to maintaining your brand. So at the end of the day, my biggest advice to anyone, young professional, seasoned professional, someone who's even retired and says, hey, listen, I know things have changed in the workforce, I'm looking for some type of advice. Always be yourself.
Okay.
Always be yourself. And at the end of the day, I can't stress that enough. Don't try to be someone that you're not. And my personal opinion is you can't really have a quote-unquote bad interview if you always be yourself. Of course, you can maybe say something that's not the best, but that's, again, going back to ask questions. Look for advice. Look for opportunities to better yourself so that way you can create that brand you truly want. And that's the biggest key here, making sure that you come up with that brand that you are representing who you are, who you want to be, and who you are this moment. So again, just as a reiteration, keep in mind everything you do is always defining your brand. So keep that in mind no matter what you do. Regarding your online brand, keep up with the posts, to assure that other professionals, that they see this online and that you're active. It keeps your name and your brand fresh and, of course, in other people's minds as well. So that's something that I definitely want everyone to remember, is ultimately everything you're doing is always a reflection on your brand itself. Make sure you have nothing visible on your social media pages that you wouldn't want your parents or grandparents to see, quite frankly. This becomes a reflection on you and who you are and what of course your brand is and your values and your feelings on things. Last little tip for you here is Google yourself. And I know many people have in the past, but Google yourself even this afternoon. See what comes up. This is what an employer would see. So, for example, myself, if I see a resume that I like in a pile of my resumes for our applications, and I Google somebody and I see something I don't really want to see, that's not going to leave really a great impression on me in terms of what your overall professionalism and what you're trying to do in your career. So, selling your brand. What separates you from other professionals? What can you offer me compared to other students and professionals out there? So, again, think about it, for example, a product on the shelf. You walk into a store and you see essentially you see two products. One's name brand and one's, let's say, the store brand. What's going to make you want to buy one versus the other? Of course, price is going to be a factor. The marketing, the actual, the visual of the product itself is going to be a factor. At the end of the day, though, you have to realize that when you're selling your own brand to a business or a company or a teacher or a parent or whoever, you have to make sure that you realize that what the skills that you have and the abilities you have, aka if we compare it to the shelf analogy, the product on the shelf, it's your price, it's your marketing, it's what you represent, it's how good of a how good can you perform. Let's say if it's something as simple as a face wash, how is that face wash going to compare to the other face wash? So it's a matter of making sure that you truly stand out from the rest, and making sure that every day you pretty much live your life is another time for you to explain your brand and show your brand and sell it at the same time. So to go to social media, the biggest thing that I cannot stress enough is be careful of what you post online. People who look you up online only see what you really have posted. And I know I mentioned that earlier in the presentation, but a large portion of that comes from beyond even myself as a recruiter. It's your friends and colleagues. Do you want even your friends who you obviously trust and you care about and you are close with, do you want them to see certain things that you post? Do you want your grandparents to see something? If one of your parents are on Facebook, or maybe if you don't even know they're on Facebook and they happen to see something, at the end of the day, just keep in mind that it's everything that you post is a representation upon you as a professional. So think about that and keep that in mind when you post things. On my end, where I actually personally do check out once receiving a resume, again, it would be LinkedIn. I check out Twitter, I check out Facebook, and if possible, and if I have time to do so, I will also try to check Instagram just to kind of see exactly a little bit more about the professional that applies. Of course, with time allotting, I don't typically check every single source on every single candidate that I like, or resume that I like, but for the most part, it's pretty much always LinkedIn and or Facebook. And those two aspects are huge because, and we'll touch on this again and later in the presentation, there's a huge difference between what LinkedIn is and what Facebook is. So, and to bring up an example and something that just happened in real life news, there was a Bloomsburg baseball player that was just kicked off the team for an inappropriate tweet that he tweeted out on Twitter. And with what happened to that was he was actually kicked off the team simply because of what he tweeted, not because of any physical actions outside of online presence. It wasn't because of anything that he actually did, other than, of course, through the actual tweet. I guess the message here is you're still representing yourself. So even if people think that it's not a big deal because it's just a post online, it doesn't really have that much weight to it, it certainly does. Your overall presence online is just as important and crucial as your presence is in the real world. So whether you said it in person to a mentor or a teacher or someone else, it's just as bad as if you post it on Facebook or Twitter. And this particular story of the Bloomsburg baseball player is just the most recent one, but I know that there's tons and tons of these stories that are coming out in the news every other day about something that happened as a negative consequence because of something that was shared online. So just make sure that you're aware of what you're posting, because it certainly can come back to bite you, unfortunately, if you're not being careful of what you're sharing. And the last point I have here is, of course, think about who again will see this. What is appropriate and what isn't. So I wanted to talk about the differences between LinkedIn and Facebook. And I have the first bullet as there certainly is a difference between the two. LinkedIn is more so for the professional side of things. It's more so for the online networking, while of course Facebook is certainly a similar process, but it's more for the personal side of it, where you're dealing more so with friends, and if you want to post a picture of you and a friend's out, having dinner one night, whatever it is, the big thing that students and professionals don't see the big difference is that they feel like they're both social media, they're both platforms where I can post things, send images or send photos or send, share different posts, whatever it is, and it's the matter of looking at the difference. So again, me as a professional, my first thing I look at when I see a resume is going to LinkedIn. I will go to Facebook second, but LinkedIn is the number one that I will go to. So I guess I would stress the fact that if you want to put a picture up, for example, of a few friends out at a party, sure, put that on Facebook. but that's not really appropriate for LinkedIn for that matter. You know, it's not something that really we as a professional, as a recruiter, would want to see, and really, quite frankly, shouldn't see it. You know, LinkedIn is created to allow you to connect with other professionals, to increase your network, and allow yourself to keep in touch with other professionals, whether it's in your field of interest or others. You know, keep in mind, Facebook is still, of course, used by recruiters like myself, and to see what kind of more of a person you are. So keep that in mind. We'll use that to our advantage sometimes on the business side of things when we see a resume we like, and we'll say, you know what, well, I want to see a little bit more to this person. It seems like, you know, they're in college and they have a good job so far. They're interning at another company right now, which is, you know, a Fortune 500, for example. But I want to see a little bit more than just their resume and their LinkedIn. So that's when I would dive into a Facebook. And if there are certain things that are not so appropriate that I don't want that, I wouldn't want someone like that to represent our company, that's going to be a huge red flag. The most important tip here I have is also making sure that your resume is up to, or your actual profile is up to date. LinkedIn profiles that list past positions and up to date are 12 times more likely to be reviewed by hiring managers and recruiters like myself, and are 6 times more likely to receive a new business opportunity. This quote comes directly from LinkedIn's website. So I can't stress enough, again, it's something where beyond, of course, what you're posting, it's just keeping up to date with your posts, keeping up to date with your background, with your positions, with where you are this moment, with your duties in that position, because that is a huge portion of your online brand as well. Now, how to use social media to your advantage. So you receive more profile views by posting interesting information, of course, in photos and posts regarding your background and career. I guess I would want to make sure that you realize to be active on social media. You know, you'll be seen more by other professionals. So whether that means commenting on related pages, you can like certain pages, like posts, photos, etc. But make sure that most of the things that you are liking on LinkedIn, for the most part, and Facebook, of course, for the matter, is regarding your personal background and career. Because another thing to keep in mind, I'm sure most of you out there know, when you like a photo or like a post on LinkedIn or on Facebook, it actually shows up on other people's feeds of what you just liked. So if you're liking something that you think is kind of funny but you wouldn't post it yourself and it's a little inappropriate, keep in mind your name's still going to be attached to that post or photo, because it will come up and say, you know, Bob Smith, whoever it is, liked this post. And if it's something that you don't necessarily believe in, but you thought it was kind of funny at the time while you were scrolling through your Facebook timeline or LinkedIn timeline, keep that in mind, because that's going to be a huge reflection on you, because it shows, even though you don't necessarily agree with it, you just happen to like it and you think it's an innocent like, it comes full circle and it becomes a reflection on you and what you represent. So keep that in mind as well. The advantage of liking pages and posts. I wanted to talk about this for a sec. So the advantage of liking pages and posts, it has its advantages because it'll give you more of a presence online. So to go back to my last point, when you like something, your name pops up with that post, that Bob Smith liked this post or liked this photo. To go flip side on that, there has its advantages, of course, if you like things that you do know that would have an effect on your career in a positive light, or if it's a feel-good story that was posted by somebody on LinkedIn that talked about some charity in the area, or talked about just something that would kind of shed some good light on just general everyday news, and you happen to say, wow, it's a great story, feel free to like it, because it just kind of builds that brand awareness that, hey, this is pretty cool. And when I see it, just as a general scroll through my LinkedIn timeline each morning or each evening, I think about you, the person who liked that photo, with that story. And it's an unconscious branding, and that's something that people don't think about as well. So whenever you get the opportunity to like somebody's anniversary, work anniversary, or like somebody's photo or post, do that as much as you can, because it just gets your name out there a lot more for people like myself that we're connected, and I forget that we're connected because we've connected 2 years ago. But if I see your name scroll through my timeline time and time again, and I happen to be looking for someone with your background, I most likely will probably click on your profile one of the times where you like something and say, oh, you know what? Let's give him or her a call. I remember meeting them at a networking event a couple years ago. Haven't really stayed in touch that much, but I was very impressed. I was very impressed with the opportunity that they presented with me, so I'll kind of come back and maybe talk about the position then. The last thing I would mention here is to network, and we'll talk about network in the next couple slides. and networking, but use LinkedIn and Facebook as your advantage. So LinkedIn, for example, is a huge way of networking yourself. Don't be afraid to send a LinkedIn request to somebody that you know through somebody else you haven't formally met. A lot of people think, well, because Facebook and everything, I don't want to be, I don't want to be misguided with someone adding me on Facebook that I don't know. That's a different story, in my opinion. Facebook, again, is for the personal side of things. LinkedIn is for more the professional side. Because at the end of the day, LinkedIn is used to help build your network. So if you happen to send somebody a request, or somebody sends you a request and you're not so sure of who it is, feel free to send them a message. Hey, I'm just curious to know, do I know you from somewhere? Don't feel weird about doing that, because that's going to be a way just kind of breaking the ice. They may just say, hey, no, I happen just to like your background, thought we may be able to connect for future reference. Who knows where each of us will end up in our careers. Me personally, every single event that I go to, I will speak to any student and any professional in that building. Of course, if they're wanting and willing to speak to me as well. But I will speak to anyone in that room. And the reason being is because whether your background is engineering, art, psychology, marketing, whatever it is, I know that I guess I would say a new person in my network is somebody that who knows where I'm going to end up in my career, who knows where they will end up in their career. And we could definitely be an asset to each other this time, who knows, 6 months from now, 2 days from now, 5 years from now, who knows. And at the end of the day, you can never know too many people. And I strongly believe that and mean that, because it just helps you with just your everyday life. If you have a question about a certain background, and you're like, oh, you know what, I just met a doctor actually at a networking event 2 weeks ago. Let me reach out to them and see if they have an idea of kind of, maybe they can have some insight on the cough that I have. Whatever it is, it's still an idea of you just building your network and knowing more people. So to go on that and to piggyback on the comments that I just made, it's the importance of networking. When you know more people in different industries, it helps you pretty much along in your overall career. Again, it can never hurt to know too many people. The long-term commitment to maintaining your brand is also, I want to go back full circle, is to open your door, in order to open your doors, to more career opportunities. So the reason I put that bullet there is because the networking comes hand in hand with your brand. When you network with other professionals and you talk to other professionals, again, if you think about it, if you network and connect with people on LinkedIn, they only see what you've posted on LinkedIn. They've only seen your career background. They only see what you're doing if you post things. So me personally, I posted that I'm going to be doing this webinar this moment on my LinkedIn yesterday to make sure that people see it. And when I get back to my desk this afternoon, I will be posting that again, that it was such an incredible opportunity to be back in my alma mater at Cabrini's campus, and I enjoyed my time here, whatever it may be. But that's just a way of making sure that people see what I've been up to. So again, it's just making sure people remember my name and who I am and what I've done for them in the past, of why we even networked them or connected with them in the past at some point. Another key point that I wanted to make here is for the past few years, and I got this off of one of the career sites that I usually frequent. Surveys have shown that around 40% of the jobs that have been filled in the past 2 to 3 years were found through networking, compared to just 25% of jobs that were found through internet job ads. That's a huge, huge jump. So make sure that you are, again, to go back on a couple slides ago, make sure that you are keeping up to date with your LinkedIn profiles, your Facebook profiles, making sure that your posts are not going to be anything borderline inappropriate, that if you don't want your parents or grandparents to see, or anyone else, make sure that's deleted off your page, because everything you do, from, again, your physical appearance to your physical actions to how you say certain things to your online presence, all comes full circle with what your brand is. And you can be assured that if you have a good, professional, up-to-date brand, if you will, and you network yourself properly and get your name out there, whether it's through LinkedIn or in-person networking events, you can be part of that 40% of getting those jobs through networking versus just applying and hoping for the best. So lastly here, I wanted to give everyone here a challenge. Whoever is watching this, listening to this, whether it's this moment while I have the live webinar or down the road when anyone sees this on YouTube or wherever it's going to be posted, I challenge you to take at least one action today to either help create or strengthen your particular brand, whether it be online, in person, or even within yourself. And that includes making a promise and a commitment to yourself that you will make sure your brand is one that people will want to buy. again, to go back to the analogy that if it's a product on the shelf, why should they buy your brand versus the brand next to yours? So that's what I will finish up with, and I have here as some questions. My door is always open, and I wrote this word for word. My door is always open for anyone who views this and has a question regarding branding or what I look for in an interview or simply looking for some advice from a professional. As you can hear in my voice, I have a true passion for helping students, wanting to assist them in any way that I can, whether they're a freshman in college, a junior in high school for that matter, or they graduated college 10 years ago and they say, you know what, Sam, I really like your background. I have a couple of questions for you. I would love to throw your way. Whatever it is, I would love to keep the door open. Certainly, of course, network, and I certainly will leave the door open here in this particular webinar. If anyone has a couple of questions, just throw them my way, and I'll keep the door open. I'll be silent for a sec to see if questions come up. Do you have any examples of how social media has impacted someone's reputation poorly? So that was a question that came through on the webinar itself. I would say in my particular career, it has not to the point where it was a total deal breaker. There's been a couple situations where I've liked the resume that I saw that came in through our application system, and I happened to look them up online, and there was a few photos that weren't to the point where it was a deal breaker, but it was enough for me to say something, because again, if I bring you in for an interview, I want to not only help you through the interview process as much as I can, but I want to see if you're a good fit, of course, for the company. So I mentioned to the student that, hey, listen, I don't think it's the best idea to have those photos up on your Facebook, especially because I was able to find it in just a couple of minutes. And again, that's part of your brand. So good question. Does anyone else have any questions on here? Next question is, what are some good questions to ask someone interviewing you? I guess what I would say to that, what are some good questions to ask someone interviewing you? I would say some questions you could throw, if I'm reading this correctly, if questions that would ask me as the interviewer. But I would say is what do you like most about the company? What do you like most about the company? If I'm answering the question appropriately, what are some good, what do you like most about the company? I would also bring up, what are you looking for in this candidate? What's your ideal candidate look like? Those are some questions that I love answering. And what is the number one character trait that you would want in a student or this position? So that's what I would say to that. Any other questions while I'm on here live for the webinar itself? All right, that wraps it up. I have the next slide with my contact info. So that is my direct email to my work address and my direct phone number to my office in the office of Reminder Media itself. So find me on LinkedIn. Certainly, whoever views this, and I stress this, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a message. Hey, Sam, I saw your webinar. I would love to connect with you further. I have some questions, or just like I said, just simply connect. Who knows where we'll end up, each of us in our career. And feel free to check out Reminder Media as well with the great opportunities we have, both internships and for full-time jobs. So thanks everyone for participating, and hope everyone has a great day.